Dr. Vivian is in San Jose at a conference today with several board members. So I'll be chairing the meeting on his behalf. So we'll move on to the first item. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to review and approval of the meeting notes.
Move approval.
Second.
Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion?
Abstain. I
Abstain?
wasn't here for last meeting.
You don't have to abstain, but if you want to.
Who wants to?
Sorry, all right.
We're parliamentary.
So we'll move on to the superintendent president's update. I'm going to combine the president's update with the business and administrative services update. So last night we had a board of trustees meeting, and there were several items I'd like to provide an update on. First, some very good news about some new grants that are coming in our direction. $574,000 for a community college completion grant. And what that will do is provide financial aid benefits to students who are taking at least 15 units and are working toward completing a degree or certificate. And the financial aid provided will be $750 per semester. And so that's very good financial assistance to help students complete their degrees or certificates.
Excuse me, Dr. Storti, is that only new students or new and continuing?
New and continuing.
Okay, great.
Yes. And the second item is an additional $126,000, actually to be exact, $125,858 for DACA students. So we're seeing a lot of support from the Chancellor's office in Sacramento for DACA students, and this is additional funding coming our way to benefit those students. Also, $53,000 for a hunger-free campus. So this will be assistance for services from our food bank. So more good news in that area. The Board of Trustees deliberated last night about selecting a search firm for the presidential search, and went into quite detail on the discussion about the different firms. They interviewed a total of 5 firms, and they narrowed it down to 2 finalists. And the firm that was selected is the Collaborative Brain Trust, CBT, and our lead consultant for the presidential search will be Sandra Serrano, and she's the former chancellor of Herman County Community College District. So she presented about a month ago, and the different firms presented, and the board was very impressed with CBT and decided to go in that direction. The fee for the search will be a total of $60,000, and that includes 2 primary components. One, the component for searching, the search services, and another component is onboarding. So once the new president is selected, CBT will provide services to assist and provide consulting services with the new president to make the transition a smooth transition. Also approved at the board meeting was the appointment of Salvatore Cuomo as the new Executive Director of Workforce Development. And also Officer Chan was appointed a new police sergeant in our police department. So really right now our police department is fully staffed. Campus safety is extremely important to me in the entire police department, the president also. So having a department that's fully staffed is extremely important, and we're glad to have a full team right now. We're actually increasing our patrol in the night. In the past, we've only had one police officer. Now we'll have two personnel on duty at night. Because when you think about it, to have one on duty, it's very dangerous if they encounter a situation. And also, we're not only patrolling this campus, we're patrolling Foothill and Rosemead. So if the officer is required to go off-site, it creates a void in the other area. So that's one thing that we're doing to increase the campus safety. I'd like to provide a little information about the U building. So the rebuilding replacement project, it's a $63 million project that was approved in the state budget this year. The project was approved as an emergency replacement project. And what that means is the plans that were submitted and approved, we basically have very little, if no, flexibility in modifying those plans. I've been working with GKK Works, the architect who was selected to represent us for the project. And we've had several conversations with the Chancellor's office in an attempt to get flexibility in the design that was submitted, because the design that was submitted was developed internally, and it was developed back in 2011. So we just want to have an opportunity to update those plans and get as much user input as possible now before we move forward. But what we're being told by the Chancellor's office is that, once the initial project proposal and final project proposal were submitted and approved, we're basically locked into it. But we're still working on flexibility. And I'd like to share a couple diagrams of the building, and hopefully everyone can see. This is a diagram showing the plans that were submitted, and it's really just showing the angle that the building was, it's at a 45-degree angle to the plaza. So the existing U building is more perpendicular, but the plans for some reason included a building that was set at a 45-degree angle. And how it's presented, it abuts right into the, right up against Galloway, and that would require a lot of grading and a retaining wall, which is very expensive and just compounds the difficulty of the construction. So what GKK and I have been working on is trying to get flexibility in having the building positioned perpendicular, which would be consistent with the other buildings. It would be an easier construct because it would be, we wouldn't have to do grading and carving it into the hill. We would ideally like to go with a different building itself. The building that was proposed was a 5-story building with 1 elevator. And to put context, the R building has 4 elevators. The current U building has 3 elevators. So to have 1 elevator and this type of building where you have chemicals going up, it's really a safety concern. So GKK believes that we can get flexibility in adding 1, maybe 2 elevators. The only problem is it won't be state funded, so it'll be something that we need to cover with our local resources. But it's something that it's important to have more than 1 elevator. Think about it, you're probably going to have 1,000 students in the building at one time, and to rely on 1 elevator to go up 5 stories, I mean, that's problematic. So hopefully we get flexibility, and we've been working with the Chancellor's office. And GKK actually was on site this Tuesday, and they met with the main users to discuss these types of issues with the users and get input from them. And they'll be scheduling user group meetings just to try to get as much information as possible. GKK, I mean, they're experts in this kind of building and also experts in working with the Chancellor's office. So if we can get any type of flexibility, I believe GKK will be able to assist us in getting there. We actually submitted the change in the position of this building earlier this week. So we asked the Chancellor's office permission to go from a 45-degree angle more to an angle that's consistent with the other architecture on the campus, just to maintain the architectural integrity of our existing facilities. That really concludes the update that I have for business services and the President's update. If anyone has any questions on anything or anything else that I can address, I'd be happy to do so. Yes.
Just briefly, I was curious as to why the elevator costs wouldn't be covered by state funds, why it would have to come out of pocket if we previously had 3. It would seem logical.
Because, yeah, that's a very good question, right? Because the plans that were submitted included 1 elevator. So we actually submitted a request. If it had 3 elevators, there would have been funded 3 elevators. But we submitted a request with 1 elevator.
So if we wanted to get the other 2 funded, we would have to resubmit it, and that would delay the process.
If we wanted to make, a very excellent question, if we wanted to get it funded, or if we wanted to change the building altogether, instead of 5 stories, go 4 stories, or change the configuration, we would actually have to pull the project And what that means is we would lose this funding opportunity, and that would put us at the bottom of the list on state funding. And as you know, Proposition 51 that passed last November was $2 billion for community colleges. That's going to go extremely quick. So at the bottom of the list, we're looking at best case scenario, maybe funding in 15 years from the state. But there are other funding opportunities. If we do go out for a local bond and pass a local bond, then we will have resources. But this is state funding, very difficult to turn away. It's paid for by the entire state as opposed to just our local district.
Thank you.
Any other questions I can address? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to academic affairs. Dr. Jean.
Thank you. I wanted to give updates on two things. What's going around right now is actually Dr. That's right. Basically what I just passed around was the final prioritized list for faculty hiring. This is the end result of us following AP 7210. Actually, it went fairly well. The administration and the faculty hiring prioritization committee were almost in agreement from when they first met. There were just a few the things that had to work out that I think both the faculty and the administration are pleased with this final list. And so what's happening now basically is that deans working with discipline faculty and human resources will be developing the job announcements with the hope that that these positions will be posted probably the first week or so of December, and the actual hiring process will be happening most of it actually will be starting in the spring when the faculty come back for the spring semester. The other thing that I wanted to update you on are some enrollment numbers. And so a couple of things. Number one, in the minutes that you just approved, I had commented on where our enrollments this fall in both credit and non-credit were considerably less than last fall. 6,000 in credit and about 2,500 in non-credit. I'm going to retract that statement. Our enrollments are actually almost identical at this point. In the credit side, we're ahead by about 340 enrollments, and in the non-credit we're down by about 397. And so the estimate on FTS is that our current fall 17, is generating approximately the same FTS as we saw in last fall. Hopefully we won't have that sort of error again. But it's good that we've noted that, and that I and others can feel a little bit more comfortable where we are in regard to FTS generation. In regard to winter, we're in winter registration, and winter registration is doing very well. As of this morning, we're at 52% fill with over almost 11,000, just about 200 students short of 11,000. At the same time last year, we only had 2,000 enrollments, so this is considerably ahead of last winter. I think students realize we have winter now, and they're jumping on that. This winter is actually larger than last winter, and so my estimates are that if we reach 80%, which I believe we might actually exceed that, but if we reach 80%, we'll generate around 2,000 FTS for this winter, and that's compared to about 1,300 FTS from last winter, which is all good. And so that's all I have right now. Obviously, I'm talking about the calendar shortly, but I'll save all of that till that item on the agenda. If anyone has any questions about that,
How do you account for the change in enrollment? Was it late starts or just?
No, they're in the programming for pulling that data out. It appears we were doing some double counting, and so there are concurrent courses. So like in kinesiology, you'll have weightlifting A, B, and C. And when you look at the report, it will show the total enrollment under each of those, and so that has to be corrected, and that wasn't being corrected. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to standing committee report, planning and priorities.
Thanks. Okay. Just a quick brief report of what we've been working on this fall. The administrative procedure for the mission review statement, we've created one, and we're kind of looking at how the process is going right now, and we're going to incorporate that into a mission statement, the mission review and AP. We've been talking a lot about the alignment of college procedures and practices and things that are out of line, making note of those, and trying to figure out ways that we can correct that or bring that to the attention of the appropriate folks. We've had a lot of discussion and review of the various numbers that the college is required to look at, the IPA goals framework, the institutional set standards for accreditation and the scorecard, looking at overlaps, and how do we set those things in conjunction. We're talking to the academic senate on what they want to focus on. How do we figure out what we really want the college to look at and really make changes on or focus on, because there's a lot of numbers involved in all of this. Then we've been looking at the centralization of the application for degrees and certificates. We recognize that this is a problem for students. And we've also been working on an institutional planning model, integration of strategic and master plans. So we kind of built a little model. Some of you have seen this because you sit on the committee. We're not done yet. But we kind of figured we needed, I know we like to build models, but you can't really do a plan unless we have a model for how we're actually going to do the plan. So we've been tweaking this in the meeting to bring this forward to College Council. But basically it looks at developing a strategic plan and then strategic initiatives, and then those plans underneath it that will be built for instructional, student services, technology, and facilities, all of which we've talked about before, and then how those will then feed into our annual updates, our program review, and our departmental planning process. So we're trying to build a model so everybody can see how things flow into each other. Trust me, it's not done yet. We're still working on it, but this is our first time kind of going through it and having conversations about it. And then lastly, we'd like to make a formal recommendation that to College Council that in order to improve student completion, the college develop and implement a centralized process for the application and awarding of certificates of achievement, occupational skills certificate, and non-credit certificates of completion. Furthermore, we recommend that the college provide reasonable and appropriate support to admissions and records department to ensure the process is efficient and student-centered. We have various ways of awarding degrees or having students apply for certificates and degrees. We think it's very confusing. We think there has to be a better way to do this. I've had conversations with Susan Brooker. She agrees with me there's a better way to do this, and we'd like to make this a formal recommendation that the college really do this. Figure out a way to do this and make it easier for students to get their certificates, get their occupational skills certificates, and start tracking all of these.
What have been the barriers? Is it we need new software? We need to improve how Banner functions? Like, what's holding us back?
Well, that's a good question, and Susan probably can talk to this better, but I believe we do have the software with the capabilities to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is implementing all of the features of the software so that we can have it done. Did I say that right?
You did.
Thank you.
You did. There
So-
are some other things that would have to be considered as well.
So is it we need a human who can program the software? I mean,
God forbid. You need a human to do that. You need humans to assist with the process. We also need to look at the current culture because we have these processes spread all over campus. Certificates are handled division level. Non-credit is handling their own.
yeah.
But the reality is that they all, more and more, each of these elements contributes to the idea of completion, to the picture of completion.
Right.
And they are countable now in various ways through MIS and for some specific sources of funding where they weren't. The occupational skills certificates, for instance, haven't always been on the radar for MIS reporting and for funding. They are now. So it makes sense to have a process that supports some accountability.
This is something we noticed in the IEC in 2011 when we started looking at program reviews, and that it was a really serious problem. And so that this is coming 6 years later. I think this should be a real priority for the college.
Well, I think the good thing that's changed is that, in the conversation, we now actually have a software product that can really help us with this. In 2011, we did not. We have it now. But as is with this college, we like to buy software not fully implemented.
Right.
Sorry.
I ask you a question? When you said that the occupational skills certificates are now on the radar, exactly what does that mean?
Oh, well, and I don't know that this applies to all of them, but a lot of the majority probably of our CTE, occupational skills, lower unit certificates
Yeah.
can now be recorded through MIS, and they're actually, some of them at least, are eligible for some additional sources of funding. And this is all part of the workforce development CTE push from the state chancellor's office and the federal level.
Right, from the student's perspective, is that now a transcriptable event?
I have not, I have heard that it may be. I have not found it in writing yet, if you're authorized. Terry, do you know something about transcriptable?
Well, there is basically there's two things: unit value and whether or not it's Chancellor's Office approved.
Right.
And so if we have a certificate that is 18 units or more, we are required to submit that to the Chancellor's Office, and those are all transcriptable. And the process we have for those, I believe, is very much the same as if a student is applying for a degree.
No.
Oh, okay, so it should be.
That's what it is.
Right, so it should be. The occupational skills certificates basically are certificates that are less than 18 that have not been submitted to the Chancellor's Office. We have the option, it's a local decision of whether or not we want to submit certificates that are 12 units, so 12 to less than 18, we can submit them, and then they become certificates of achievement, and they are transcriptable. If they're less than 12, they don't get submitted to the Chancellor's Office. But having different mechanisms for applying for students to apply for an occupational skills certificate, a certificate of achievement, or an associate degree makes absolutely no sense. It should be the same process. And right now, basically the occupational skills certificate, that each division is doing that themselves, and it's not consistent between divisions. So if a student is earning occupational skills certificates in multiple divisions, they have to go through different processes. And so all we're doing is just confusing students.
And each division has to keep a record of what they're doing and how many, and it's
Exactly.
not incorporated in the banner, we can't extract that data anywhere. So,
I'm assuming then that this eliminates the paper process that's in place in many of the areas right now. Or the goal is to eliminate the paper process.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent.
Exactly.
Yeah, it might be that the initial implementation of this is that there's still paper, but it's done the same across the campus as we're getting it into the software system. You know, so it's which comes first, and which can we do more quickly. We could have a paper system up and running very quickly. Software, I suppose we could also have that up and running very quickly, but it takes.
I would go paper, because our track record with
Just to
online
get it going
anything
quickly,
is
right.
not very good.
I think more importantly is the fact that we're sending students to division offices to apply for these things. And there's no central location. Whereas for a degree, there's one place they go to do that and it gets handled. So it seems unfair that we're making students run around to get these things. And it's probably why we don't award as many as we'd like to. So, that's my whole thing. Okay. Take that up. That's my whole report. Now we're on to more fun things.
Move on to new items, and the first one is college calendar for 18-19.
So I didn't bring copies of this for everyone. We did send those out. So can you pull?
Yes, oh, sorry, I can't pull it up for that.
So the 18-19 calendar. So first off, I need to make a correction on the 18-19 calendar. And so in spring of 2019, March 16th should not be bold.
That one?
March 16th, that's correct, right.
2019.
And so basically with the way, so let me kind of walk you through this. The bolded dates are the instructional days. We have 176 instructional days in our calendar, 88 per semester, And that extra one there put us at 177. So there were 89 in spring the way this is done. I apologize for this. We've been trying to get this done very quickly, and we didn't have time to proof what we got back from printing before it went out to all of you so that we could get it to you in a timely fashion. And so that being said, there are 88 days in, once that change is made, there are 88 days in both fall and spring. Much of this calendar is very similar to what we've seen before. The main difference is that there are 2 flex days. That's not a main difference. We've had 2 flex days last year. We don't have them this year. But one of those flex days, the fall flex day, is Friday, August 24th. So it's the Friday before classes start on August 27th. And so flex days are colored in, I guess you can call it, I'll call it peach.
Peach.
Well,
Peach out of that.
it's not orange.
It's
Amber.
like a goldenrod or something.
Okay, I'll go with that. I don't care what color.
Peachy on tennis.
Maybe it's peach fingers.
We've got salmon, golden,
Yeah.
peach on the table.
What's that? And so,
Very ripe peach.
Tangerine.
so the hope is that College Council can approve this. The timeline that we're looking at is that if College Council approves this today, it can go to the December 13th board meeting and be approved by the board at that
I
point.
think you need to point out the change in the final schedule as well.
When finals are scheduled?
Well, yeah, because now we have a final schedule that's going to go through Tuesday through Monday
So for,
because of the
the first one you're looking at in June of 2018, that was what was approved last year, and so that's
Right.
just carrying that over from last year. And you're right, finals start on a Tuesday and they end on a Monday. You'll see that that's also true of spring 2019. And the reason for that is because the beginning of the semester is a Tuesday. And if you put finals, so it starts on June 10th, and with all of the Monday holidays, there are basically not enough Mondays. And part of that is a Memorial Day holiday, but also Cesar Chavez. Cesar Chavez is April 1st of 2019. Basically, the way Cesar Chavez works is it falls on March 31st, if that's a Monday through Friday. If Cesar Chavez, the 31st falls on a Saturday, it's the Friday before. If it falls on a Sunday, it's the Monday after. And so the 31st is a Sunday in March of 2019, so it's the Monday after. Yeah.
When are grades due?
No.
Grades are due 5 days after the class ends.
I thought it was 72 hours.
I thought it was 72
3 days,
hours after
yeah.
the last class meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm just thinking
You know.
usually there's a weekend, right, for people to sort of handle their grading, and for those Monday classes, there won't be that anymore, and it falls right on top of. So if some sort of clarity could be given on that to
We
the
will
faculty, that'd be
make
great.
that clear.
Thank you.
Yes. Other questions?
I had a question. So for the August, the peach or goldenrod here at question, professional development day flexi, will departments and business offices be open for business or closed?
We can't close the campus on Friday the 24th because of the impact that will have on enrollment and serving students. And so that's something that's going to have to be worked out, is how basically to allow classified staff to participate in the professional development activities that are happening on that day. It's easier, obviously, on March 14th because it's an embedded day. Students are here. We can literally close the campus. We can't do that on the 24th. And so that will be part of the planning of that day, of how to allow classified staff to participate in those activities.
Thank you.
Other questions?
What did you guys decide about flex? Have you guys decided?
We, Classified Senate is, we met yesterday and we had a language that we drafted, included in AP 4011. We were going to be reconvening on December 6th and providing our final recommendations for that AP to Dr. Junie and Flex Committee. So we are drafting language to the extent that we are recognizing that as our flex day. However, if the campus remains open and classified cannot fully participate, then we will have an alternate professional development day that will fall on a non-instructional day as agreed upon with Dr. Bergman.
And also, not that it matters to this group probably, but the flex days are also all flexible flex.
Well, so now what we're talking about is the changes to the Flex AP. That AP has not yet been, it is not finished. I mean, there's still work on it, obviously. The Classified Senate's talking about that, but the current version of that includes a method for doing what we'll call flexible flex, which basically allows faculty, and the idea would be also classified, to be able to participate in professional development activities that don't actually occur on the day, and get credit for those hours. And so that is the intent of some of the changes that are going into that AP, is basically to set up a form of flexible flex. Yes, and so that's the hope, is that will be finalized and approved, and then both faculty and classified will have the opportunity to get flex activities provided to them, as well as to come up with some of their own things that they would want to do in regard to professional development outside the actual scheduled day. So can someone have a motion?
Move to approve the 2019 calendar.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Discussion? Okay, calendar passes.
You're supposed to have discussion before the vote,
Before you
sir.
vote.
Otherwise, it's-
Thank you, parliamentarians.
I was wondering when they catch that.
So
We didn't want to hurt
1920,
his feelings.
He's filling in today, go easy.
right, so 1920, I also need to make a change here. So February 22nd should be bold. So this calendar was short a day, where the other calendar had one too many days. So we just, we were doing an average. Otherwise, very much the same. Obviously different days, different dates. Friday the 23rd is the Friday before classes start on the 26th. That's indicated as a flex day. What Mark was pointing out in regard to finals week, you'll see that in spring of 2020, finals start on Monday and end on Sunday because Caesar Chavez Day is Tuesday. So it doesn't have the same impact on the number of Mondays that occur in that spring semester. I'm open to any questions about this one. As I said, it's pretty much the same.
No, but I would just say I'm just happy that we're getting ahead of the game on the calendars this time around. I know it hasn't been the situation in the past, so I'm very happy to be able to see that our students can actually plan much more ahead of time with having the schedules already set up for, again, 1920 already. So thank you.
Well, and to add to that, Tito, I mean, part of why we are doing approving 2 years of academic calendar is so that we can post 2 years of schedule of classes, because we need the start and end dates to be able to build those schedules. And so,
Yes.
questions?
Why is Thanksgiving so late in November in 2018?
Because of the way, because the first day of November is a Friday,
Oh, okay, I
and
get it.
Thanksgiving
Yeah, it's
falls
always
on the
the
4th Thursday of November.
Motion to approve 1920.
Second.
Yeah,
Discussion?
yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, it passes. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you all.
Third item is AP 7120, comprehensive and coordinated professional development.
Actually, it's the
Triple SP. integrated.
It's the integrated plan.
Okay, it's outdated. Item 3, Triple SB, Equity BSI report.
Krista, we have a PowerPoint. Is that something
Yes,
you can plug in?
let's do it.
Yes,
I love
okay.
a good PowerPoint.
Micaela has it. Mika, is this your first time presenting at College Council? Okay, so I'd like to formally introduce my co-chair for the Student Success Committee, Dr. Micaela Maris Tamayo, who is our Director of Equity, and she's done an amazing job leading our committee through creating the integrated plan, and she's going to take the lead on presenting it.
So hello everyone, good morning, and thank you for welcoming me here. And I know it's in a mess of stuff, Crystal. Sorry.
We'll find.
Right, district downstairs. Yeah, it's the 2017, 2019.
Oh, we got right that one? Nice, I'm ready, tell me when to flip.
Oh, thank you.
I'm here for you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And so we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So just in terms of an overview, what I wanted to share with you is some background on BSI, or Basic Skills Initiative, Student Equity, and then SSSP, which is the Student Success and Support Program. We're going to talk about the process of creating the integrated plan in terms of the assignment that was given to us from the Chancellor's office, and then I wanted to share with you what really forms the heart of the plan, which are integrated student success goals, or in other words, 5 overarching goals that we have for the 2017-2019 planning cycle that cut across BSI, SSSP, and equity, and the associated activities with them. So in terms of some background, essentially there's 3 distinct sources of funding. I think that's what it boils down to for a lot of people. It's 3 distinct sources of funding that have been shared from the state, and also 3 kind of semi-distinct goals that they've had previously. So the Basic Skills Initiative is specifically focused on our students who assess at and then ultimately place into courses that are below college level courses, and in particular we're thinking about in English, math, and ESL. It is important to note though that there's no such thing as like basic skills history, right, or basic skills geography. So these are not students who are solely confined to 3 departments, but there are students right across the campus. The second source of funding is student equity, and so that's really been with the purpose of making sure that we're working on closing our achievement gaps here on campus. It's important to understand that achievement gaps are something that are historically created and that are really, really tricky and complicated sort of beasts that we're dealing with. So to evoke a little bit of what Dr. J. Luke Wood has cited before, it's not looking for a silver bullet, it's silver buckshot, right? Because there's multiple things that we need to kind of get at once. And then our Student Success and Support Program really focuses on getting our students fully matriculated into PCC. So that includes everything from assessment to orientation to making sure that students have at minimum an abbreviated student education plan by a certain point of earlier on, right, in their time with us, and then making sure that they have the appropriate resources to actually move through to completion. All 3 of those, in terms of creating the integrated plan, we can. You're doing great, Crystal. Thank you. The next point then is that we received some homework, right? And it was assigned from the Chancellor's office in February 2017, and it asked us to do 2 things really: to reflect on the previous efforts done by each of those 3 initiatives, and then also to identify again those 5 goals and associated activities that cut across them and support student success. And so the idea is that although there are 3 seemingly distinct kind of efforts that have been going on, they really share in common the idea of improving student success and closing achievement gaps. Our study group, right, so we're going with kind of a student-centered idea here. Our study group was formed in spring 2017 and then really got together in fall 2017. So the Student Success Committee, whose composition and charge was approved through shared governance, so thank you all for your part in doing that last year, was approved in spring 2017. We had a retreat during the week 1 of fall, and we've been having weekly meetings from 1:30 to 3 p.m. On Tuesdays, often in the library terrace. They are open for anyone who would like to come and visit us and kind of partake in that discussion. And just recently we had a very fruitful kind of discussion with our enrollment management standing committee. So, we're also looking to bridge a lot of the efforts that are happening, or the discussions that are happening in the Student Success Committee, because certainly this is something that cannot take place in silos on campus. And then the last point on this slide is that the homework is due in January 2018. Previously, it was December 1st of this year, then it moved to December 15th, and within the past couple weeks or so, it moved further out to January 31st. What I want folks to really understand, though, is that this is not something that necessarily gives us more time to work on what we have. It's about them developing an online portal for us to submit this information, and so it's a portal that my understanding hasn't been fully developed yet or even tested. So that's really what this time is for them to kind of figure that out. So, FYI. Okay, so now the last slide that I have for you, and this is in the packet that you received, the 5 integrated student success goals that we identified as a committee were the following. So the first is to build student pathways from non-credit to credit, as well as pathways to completion. The next one is to decrease achievement gaps by 4% for disproportionately impacted groups through college-wide efforts grounded in equity-minded frameworks and cultural competence. And the 4% was a big source of discussion within the committee. Essentially what we're looking at are the overall success rates for our college. We're using the Student Success Scorecard data that the Chancellor's Office puts out. And currently we have a gap of about 11.5% between the overall success rate and the success rates for both African American and Latino students who experience achievement gaps across the board. And so we've been doing a good job of about 1% a year of closing those gaps. And so we felt over a 2-year period, 4% was a loftier but reachable goal. The third goal is to improve success rates for students who complete a degree applicable course after having completed any basic skills course. And with the recent announcement of the drastic changes that are happening within the basic skills realm, this is certainly something we're really going to have to focus on and is part of a much larger college-wide discussion. The fourth goal is to provide consistent and comprehensive opportunities for professional development that are equity-minded and student-centered to increase student retention. We're keeping our fingers crossed that we'll have a director of professional development sooner rather than later, so that way we can work with this individual to share some of our ideas and combine them with their ideas for the campus. And then finally, to deepen collaboration with high school districts, workforce agencies, and other community partners to increase students' college and job readiness. And so all of these goals very much are in line with our educational master plan and reflect the input of our students, most importantly, as well as our faculty, our staff, and our classified representatives on the committee. So I welcome any questions or comments, and again, thank you for your time.
There was recently, I guess, legislation passed including homeless and LGBTQ populations and the equity. How are we going to be able to accumulate that data so that we can meet this 4%?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. So the question is basically referring to Assembly Bill 1018, which is now mandating us to look at homeless students and also LGBTQ identified students when developing our equity plans. I was just at a conference this weekend at UC Riverside for LGBTQ students in the community college system here in California. And the representative from the Chancellor's Office was saying, and I believe her name is Vice President Moore, if I'm not mistaken, that within a few weeks we'll have data released to us about, in particular, LGBTQ identified students. Now, then it's a process of really understanding what a few weeks means. This is data that the Chancellor's Office has been collecting but has not previously released because of stated concerns for student safety. I guess take that as you will. And so once that is released, then we'll have to start the process of a disproportionate impact study. So it's going to take a little bit of time. I think another thing that's important to understand is that data is always something we're trying to grapple with. We've had a lot of support from the Office of Institutional Effectiveness. So I'm really grateful to Crystal and to Patti and to everyone there for that. It's an ongoing conversation to really understand how do we identify and make sense of data that's appropriate for us at our college level. So that's something that we're going to be working on. Also important to understand is that this is, to some degree, and at the very least, the student equity plan is a living document, so we can go back and adjust and kind of include groups as needed, and articulate better, you know, what we're doing for particular groups.
May I ask I guess my primary concern is that for the homeless population, for example, we don't even know what those numbers are right now.
Well, we're working on that, and how we're working on that is that we have a survey that doesn't go out, but it's given to students before they register. It's called for CETA, and it's for CETA funding. So this fall, we added questions onto that too with regards to homelessness and food needs. So right now, it actually goes through banners, so ITS gives us a table with that information. So we are actually getting that information and then comparing it to students who are using the pantry to see if we can really identify the problem. So we are taking steps. And then the other thing we're doing is the fall student survey, which will probably go out either later today or tomorrow once we get our technical difficulties working out. We are adding questions on there, asking them to identify their sexuality, and we're asking questions on there regarding homelessness and food needs. So we are taking some more proactive steps in gathering this information.
Thank you.
And if I might add to that, I think it's also, this is an excellent point because it's important to remember the issues of housing insecurity and also how one identifies in terms of their sexuality, that changes over time. And so it's not necessarily data that we get when they apply, right? Because students disclose different things, even the wording of it, like if you ask a student, are you homeless? Well, no, I have a couch that I'm sleeping on. I have a roof over my head. But it's, if you phrase the question differently, do you know where you're going to be sleeping consistently for the next 3 months? Something like that, right? We can get different.
The good news for you is that I spent my previous career studying homelessness. So I do know how to phrase all the questions, and we're very particular about how we ask the question, because you're right. It's not just are you homeless, it's do you have a regular place to stay that you call your own. So we have ways to ask the question to get at that, and has it been in the, and not just was it last night, but was it in the last 30 days or the last 60 days, because then that tells you there is an insecurity.
Like I said, thankful for OIH. Right? And I'm sorry.
No, the question was answered. Thank you very much.
I actually, I don't have a question for you, but I do want to make a comment about AB 750 because that obviously impacts this one. What's that?
705.
Is it?
705.
Whatever the number. It has 7, 5, and 0 in it. So what that's been signed into law. It actually goes into effect in January of 2018. And just to kind of summarize the bullet points, what it says is that when a student arrives at a community college, they should be taking a transfer level math class and a transfer level English class within 1 year. And for ESL, they should be taking if they are an ESL student, they should be taking transfer level English within 3 years of arrival. Our current pathways and placement of students do not meet any of that, but it is much like the new legislation on LGBTQT and also the homeless. The law says, it goes into effect in January, the Chancellor's Office basically is putting a work group together to figure out how to do this and then give guidance to the colleges. And that work is supposed to be done this semester, and then the guidebook or guidance is supposed to come out sometime after that, but it won't come out before January of 2018. And so colleges need to start the conversation. The expectation will not be that we have put in place the ways for that to happen by January of 2018. And so those conversations obviously are starting in the English, math, and language/ESL divisions. But there's a lot of work that will have to come to play with that. And obviously that impacts this considerably because, I mean, another way of thinking about it from the standpoint of the Basic Skills Initiative is that the state has decided the best way to deal with it and I'm just really cutting to the point, is to eliminate basic skills classes. And so it's like, so how do you do that? And there's a lot of good data actually to show that if you put students into either one level below or college level and you provide the appropriate just-in-time remediation and wraparound services, that they can be more successful than if you put them in lower-level English and math courses. And from the standpoint of acceleration, it also helps them complete much faster if you put them no more than one level below from the start. So yeah, and that obviously has a lot of what's happening in this integrated plan will be impacted by that. When the Student Success Committee was putting this together, that law didn't exist yet. There were rumors, so in future plans, obviously that will be something that will probably be obviously more embedded in this plan. But the activities and the work that are being suggested, it all fits with the desire of that particular assembly bill.
Thank you very much.
Well, you have to approve it.
Yeah.
I'll move then.
Is there a motion?
Yes.
Second?
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, item 4, discussion on open enrollment, BP 5052 and AP 5052.
Susan, yes.
Susan Britton?
Not so much a discussion. These are just revisions to the board policy and administrative procedure for open enrollment. Obviously, we're required to make statements in a lot of places that our courses are open to enrollment, notwithstanding legally recognized exceptions. The only change that was made to board policy was the addition of one line that's recommended by the CCLC template, that enrollments may also be subject to a priority system, which we do have, board policy and administrative policy 5055 for registration priorities. And then also to insert the correct designation of superintendent, president, or designee in the language. Other than that, there are no changes to this board policy, and it's in order with the CCLC template recommendations.
I just want to point out that this hasn't been reviewed since 1999.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be obvious in the AP.
Yeah.
So for the AP, actually, this is a clean copy, but the entire thing is underlined. This is all new. It is in keeping with the CCLC template, but it's new because our existing administrative procedure on open enrollment is a tad off the mark. It actually provides instructions on how to register, what a student needs to do to register. And this is not the appropriate document or area for that information. So this is essentially in following the recommendations of the CCLC template. There's nothing in it that is outside of the template. That's it.
Yeah, it's pretty short, actually. You didn't finish it up.
It is, and this area, the open enrollment statements, they're pretty basic. They are, we have to do, our practice is the important part, doing due diligence to make sure that we have the statements where they need to be, all over the place. So that's basically it. Okay.
Thank you.
It's up, I mean, you can send it out if you want to take it out to the groups. I doubt you're going to be able to make changes to it. Susan kind of followed the letter of the law on this, but if you'd like to take it out, please do.
No.
We're good.
Move to approve.
Second. Is there a second?
Yes.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
And just so everybody knows, the AP will go into effect now, and I'll move the BP onto the Board of Trustees.
Next, item 5, shared governance guidelines.
This one. Okay, so the last time we talked about this part here, which is membership appointments, vacancy, and terms for the standing committees. And most of the standing committees have written sort of their own rotation of membership, but I think what this group had wanted to do was to standardize that. And the language was already in the shared governance guidelines. So the question for you is, do you want to standardize it based on this, or do you want the standing committees to continue just their rotation and selection as they've been doing it?
Standardize, please.
What's that?
I would be in favor of standardization.
Motion, we can discuss.
Is there a motion?
Yes.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion?
So we're standardizing the
Term.
terms for each standing committee?
Right now, some of them are 2, some of them
Oh,
are
the
3,
terms,
some
the
of them are
terms.
2 or
Okay,
3.
yes,
some
okay.
of them
Yeah,
are
understood.
7
I
terms.
thought it was language terms.
Yeah, no,
Okay, yeah, the terms, yes, absolutely.
It makes it very hard to track
Yes.
when there's openings and to allow people access to opportunities to serve.
And the standardization is gonna be 1 year or 2 year? I don't know for the IEC, it's been 2 years exactly.
The learning curve's too much for
That's-
most of these committees.
That's what I would recommend, 2 years for that same reason.
But here's the thing,
Somewhere
is
at
they're,
3, right?
they're 1 year, but the selected
It says 1
representative
year.
number 6, you can be served for multiple years. You just have to be reaffirmed. And I
Okay.
actually think that's good practice, that even for the academic senate, the list goes back to you and you can do it in a package deal or the classified senate, and you reaffirm the current members or you change them out every year. That way people know they're on the committees.
Would this include co-chairs?
No, because co-chairs are designated positions as opposed to, unless it's like just as a faculty member appointed by the academic senate, but if it's the academic senate president or, and there are other things like Valerie has a lot of them actually. So when it says that position, it's the position as the co-chair. Like, for example, you're a fine one.
Yeah, like-
You're the faculty accreditation coordinator, so you co-chair because it's by position.
Sounds like we have support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Okay, next thing is, this is planning and priorities, and we decided we needed to review our membership, and basically what we did was, we just decided to put in language as, we were discussing designee. So if somebody couldn't make it or wasn't able to serve for whatever reason, that they had the opportunity to assign somebody, but we wanted to be specific. And this actually came up because the faculty co-chair for BRAC has not attended any P&P meetings, so we thought we'll give them a designee, and then we'll allow BRAC to assign a faculty member currently serving on BRAC to be on P&P. And that's what we did all the way down, except where Makayla left.
Yeah, it's
We're asking to have her join this committee. Poor thing. So she's out of the room. Good, bring her in.
Oh, I,
Is there a motion?
So move. I'll second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
So actually, Crystal, before you go on, sorry, I should have said this before, but if you go back to the membership, I think there's another part of this that you need to look at, and that's the item 7 under section 4 in regard to attendance. Because I think what's not being addressed there, this basically says that it's okay to miss as long as you tell the chair or co-chair that you're missing, but there needs to be a limit on how many times you can call the co-chair and still be considered an active member.
So if you miss 2 consecutive meetings without notifying the standing committee co-chair, you're going to be considered inactive and your position will be considered vacant.
Right, but if they call the co-chair every time, but they never come,
Yeah.
that this doesn't address that, and that's just as bad as not letting the co-chair know.
So is it 3 consecutive meetings regardless of notification?
I
I
think.
would say it's how about a percentage of the total meetings? Like if you miss more than 30% of the meetings or something.
But would a whole year have to go by to gauge the 30%, or at what point would you mark the 30%?
Because some aren't regular.
Yeah.
I think if you miss 3 meetings in a row, you're so out of the loop, it's very difficult for the committee to catch you up.
So you want me to add a number in there, like 7A, and say if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, regardless if you notify the co-chairs, you're going to be considered an active and we're going to ask for a replacement?
I'd say to say that, but then I'd also say we're 30% of the total, and I get because there you could actually calculate that before the end, because if there's 10 meetings and someone misses 3, they've hit the 30% mark, and they don't have to be consecutive meetings, because that idea that you're only in jeopardy if you miss 3 in a row. Okay, so
do you want the language to say 3 consecutive meetings or 30% of the
30%
total?
of the total.
Within an academic
So
year.
technically, we would need a motion to modify what we just
Right.
did.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So moved.
What's the language?
Yeah, what are you moving there, Joe?
What if
I like the
Move
elegant
it
so
all.
moved, so.
why don't I just bring it back? I'll bring it back to the meeting in
That's
December.
With the language.
Yes.
now. Thank you.
So
I
would
think-
the
I think
second have
number-
to withdraw their second on that? Isn't that how it works?
Well, the movement, you can stay, then
Okay.
you're gonna,
That piece.
your motion, you
The
can
amendment.
revise the motion to have me change the language and bring it back.
Okay.
I think number 5 has to be changed as well. I don't think you can you can't say that it's only one academic year unless the committee says it's different, because then every committee can still
Right, we should
come up with
fix
whatever
that.
they want.
And that's why we're doing that standardization. Right?
Yeah.
So I'll take out 5.
Well, you
just
strike
say
the end.
Strike unless the committee.
So I move to strike number 5.
Second.
I'm gonna bring this back.
Come on,
You
let's do
can
that.
just do it, Nancy.
No, let me bring it back in December. Wait, everybody knows what I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
We'll bring it back. So next we move on to old items. And the first is BP 6750, AP 6750, the third read.
Yeah, third read. Mostly the changes for this one are in the AP. The BP didn't really say very much. But we were waiting, what we did, as you can see, is Chief mentioned that a lot of changes to this, brought it up today, it's been a long time. We took out stuff like this, which should be posted on the website, said we will post parking fees shall be posted on the Pasadena City College safety website, so you know where it is. You guys have seen this multiple times. Any questions? We did make a change regarding the handicap placard. So if you're handicapped placard, you are allowed to park anywhere. They see it says right here, licensed may park in any available student or staff space. That was the last change we made.
Do they need to purchase a permit?
No.
Right.
They just need to have the handicap placard. Yes, and that follows the law, and that was the last change we made.
So classified Senate voted and approved BP 6750, AP 6750. There's no further discussion. I would like to motion to approve these two.
Second. Discussion?
No, I was just wondering if we can add valet parking.
For the academic senate president.
Apparently Santa Rosa Junior College has valet parking.
Could be a revenue opportunity.
It's really probably you can't get it
Do
close.
we have a second?
That's true.
Second.
But at least you could pull up to valet.
We're gonna look at that.
Any additional discussion?
On the turnaround.
I know the kiosk.
For we have valet or something.
We need a second to the motion.
We have like Carol
Oh,
seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. Next is BP 3000, shared governance. Crystal Color.
I brought this last time. The only thing I did for this was change it from the policy of the Pasadena Area Community College to the district shall. That's it. It's only change I made.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Classified Senate voted and approved on November 15th, yesterday.
So I guess we're just supposed to follow you guys.
Yes.
around.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote against it.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Item passes. Thank you very much.
And you will get Valley Park.
2030 academic freedom.
Okay, so this has been here before. It was asked that we sent it out to general counsel to review. I see Lady Police Norman, she sent it out to general counsel, it was reviewed, it came back to me, they made no changes to what the academic senate had done. Carol Curtis went through it line by line, I went through it line by line, they're exactly the same document. So this is the approved document from the academic senate.
Okay. Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes. Thank you very much. BPAP 5040, student records.
You're on.
Susan Bricker.
Second reading, there have been no changes to it in the interim. Basically, this is the revisions to the board policy, as we discussed last time, were to make sure we're designating superintendent president as the appropriate official, and realigning the language under directory information to make a little more sense than what our current policy says. Still a very restrictive definition of directory information, and we kind of want to keep with that.
I really do, because I'm the one who always has to produce it.
Classified Senate met yesterday and we
Approved. Mark's not here to comment. Where is this kept? The directory information? Is this in Lancer Point when you do
Directory
information?
information is part of the information that's captured in Banner.
Uh-huh.
So basically it flows from Banner, captured through the application, and any changes that the students might make to their demographic information. Name changes, basically. Awards, degrees, everything is kept within Banner. And obviously one of the things that this supports is our releasing of degree information to agencies like the National Student Clearinghouse. Releasing and publishing our athletic programs with all of the athletes listed with their heights and their weights. This gives us permission to do that.
Okay.
We also get directory information requests from outside agencies. And so this outlines then what we will and will not give them, and that's kind of important.
Okay.
And it also allows us to restrict what we release, which is important. You actually can expand this definition to include date of birth, current address, phone number, email address. There's a whole list of things that can be directory information, but again, it's the league's recommendation and mine that we keep it relatively contained.
Entertained motion.
Motion to approve.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. Item passes.
So you want to be 18 because this is bigger.
And this is the accompanying administrative procedure that basically outlines our responsibilities to maintain the confidentiality of student records, under what circumstances we can release the information, under what circumstances we have to release the information, and touches upon the rights of students, although those rights are actually more outlined in AP 5045.
Sorry, I should have asked this earlier, but you had that long list of items. Do we track status?
Documented, undocumented.
Citizenship.
We check them if they identify themselves as AB 540, they are tagged in the system.
They're not, they are somewhat tracked. They are not absolutely identified in every case.
Right.
In our current system.
So
And how does
specify that that will not be released in the previous document?
It's not part of what can be released under directory information.
It is.
So there are some
And it
things
would
that, there are some things that we are legally required to release, and then there are things that we
That's
legally cannot release. And
And-
that status, we cannot legally
Thank you.
release.
That was.
Well, and that
Unless
status
it
really,
was.
that status is the topic, but one thing I will add is that the one request, there is one request that we have to respond to, and for which we absolutely cannot notify the student, and that is a request for student information from the Homeland Security Department. It was passed as part of the Patriot Act after 9/11, and they are the only agency that can come to us, require information on a student, and we have no option to notify the student that the information is being requested.
Okay, but what we had discussed,
You're talking about directory information?
possibly, is that it would go to the superintendent's office if that were to happen, correct? That's the
If the-
procedure that we
If
discussed.
Yes,
Homeland Security
yes.
came, yeah, it would have to go through the
That
president.
any of us wouldn't
No,
No.
release it, it
absolutely
would go
not.
through superintendent president's.
Absolutely not, it follows our process. Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion on the AP?
I move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any additional discussion?
Yes, classified senate met yesterday and we approved AP 5045.
Noted, thank
We're
you.
doing our due diligence.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Item carries. Thank you very much. Last item, AP 5045, student records.
And again, this is just the second part of the privacy documents, the policies and procedures. This addresses the student's rights under for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act to review and inspect their records, to release their records, and to request amendment to their records if they see a need to. It also provides information regarding their right to file a complaint with the Family Policy Compliance Office, a division of the Federal Department of Education, in the event they think their FERPA rights have been violated. This is something that we basically have to publish and provide to them. It goes into the catalog every year. That's it.
Do we have a motion on that?
So moved?
Second.
Okay. Any additional discussion?
As a side note, I think it might be important for us to consider the need for a little enhanced FERPA training, particularly for the division deans and their staff.
I agree that we had an issue come up with a suicidal student and did not know that you could release information to other areas on campus once a student had indicated
And there are a
that
number
intent.
of institutions
Yeah.
that actually have, for instance, an online annual training requirement that has to be completed by faculty and staff. It's recommended.
Yeah.
When you said faculty and staff, is that just for staff that works in the student services or instructional
No,
area?
that's just for everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that passes.
Good work.
Conducted.
Woo!
I'm exhausted.
Graciela, how long was your meeting by the way? 3.5 hours?
Yesterday was long.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday was long. We went overboard.
Yeah. Shall we not tell Rajan how smooth things are without him?
Yeah. We got through this entire agenda and it's not even 11:30. No, I wouldn't mention it.
I think he will because he's probably watching.
Last item, any announcements?
Yes, I would like to announce that our classified senators are actually there with Dr. Verdian up in San Jose at CCLC. The last thing I want to say is Classified Senate is hosting a second of a 4-workshop series entitled Professional Development. What is it, who is eligible? So we're continuing to demystify the classified Senate, as you will, and the services that are provided here for our classified staff. If any of you would like to attend, I would encourage you to. It will be on Thursday, December 7th, noon to 1 in the Circadian, and lunch will be provided.
And I would, if I may, I'd like to thank everyone that came out to our veterans celebration at the wall last week. It was pretty remarkable. We had a World War II veteran actually come speak on history in the making. Is that guy amazing or what? We're losing those opportunities every day
Yeah.
to have that oral history. And something else that was quite impressive was the fencing club came out in their garb, their uniform, and actually did a formal fencing salute to our veterans that I thought was pretty incredible. So for those that came, thank you very much. And for those that missed it, we'll do one next year as well.
Excellent.
Just that's this is Advocacy Week, and actually at 12 noon here in the mirror pools, we're gonna have a bunch of speakers, student speakers and staff speakers as well, just speak on their experiences as being advocates, specifically with either DACA or LGBT. So it'd be awesome for you guys to come out and support that as well. Hands.
Are you gonna have the shirts for sale?
Are they still selling the t-shirts?
Yes, they are, I believe.
Next Tuesday.
This year, if you're watching. Even though it's not live.
Okay, any other announcements? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good job.